is the Business of Reselling podcast. I'm your host, Jessica Oman. Hey everyone, it's Jess. Welcome to episode 46 of the Business of Reselling podcast. And this is an episode I've been waiting a few weeks to record. This episode is about what really happened at the eBay Canada 2024 Entrepreneur of the Year Awards in Ottawa. I've been waiting to tell this story because we hadn't received our prize, and that's part of the story. But we have finally received it, and now it's time. I'm going to share the facts of what happened and our feelings about it, and that's enough. I will leave the rest of it up to your interpretation and what you want to do with that information. But there are people in a few groups and some friends of mine. I've hinted that our experience was not great. And so some people are aware of that, and they've been asking me to tell the whole story. So here it is. Before I get started on that, I'm also going to share how abysmal our eBay sales have been for about 11 days. I would say from, 2 or 3 days after we returned from Ottawa until last Friday night, November 8th. I mean, it was really awful. We're talking about like what I would say is maybe 40 to 50% of normal. And it wasn't just eBay. So I don't think this was an eBay problem. Poshmark went from, a couple of sales a day to like 1 or 2 for the entire week. Bonanza, if you sell on Bonanza, it's usually not much, but we usually get, a sale there every week or so, and there was nothing there. Even our local sales were slower than we expected them to be. And we never put our store on vacation mode while we were in Ottawa. So it wasn't that. I guess, I can think of macro factors like obviously like the election probably affected people's buying habits for a bit. There's always also kind of that lull between like Halloween and Remembrance Day or Veterans Day, where people are just kind of easing out of like the autumn stuff and kind of into the realization that winter is coming. And I find that there's often kind of a lull there, and people aren't like necessarily shopping or thinking about the holidays. So, there's a lot of economic uncertainty leading up to, and then obviously in the few days after the election in the US that probably affected people's buying habits. So, whatever, it is what it is, but it really had me feeling down. Periods of slow sales don't usually make me sad. I just kind of think about them kind of like from a big picture perspective and maybe try to figure out what's going on, but just, keep grinding away, knowing that it's going to turn around. But this particular stint of bad sales combined with the EOY experience, I'm going to call it EOY because that's easier to say than Entrepreneur of the Year over and over again. With those two things in combination, I've just really struggled with motivation over the last couple of weeks. And it's led to me and Johan like strategizing some pretty big shifts in our business and our lives. And I'll get into those a little bit at the end, although very few of those ideas are well formed at this point. But one of them is, and I'll tell you about it. Am I going to give up on eBay? No, definitely not. I mean, it's tempting. It's tempting. And I think when you hear the story, you'll understand why. But I'm not going to let my emotions get the best of me. It's not practical to pivot a business quickly right now, especially with the holiday season starting. Yeah. So anyway, we'll get to that in a little bit. However, I will say this past weekend, the last 3 days, has been really great for sales. And I mean, hopefully that means shoppers are starting to look for those holiday gifts. And I hope that we all experience some great sales going forward over the next few weeks. All right. So I've been waiting a few weeks to tell the story. And to be honest, it is not the story I wish I was telling. I wanted to tell you all about the important meetings we had in Ottawa, the stakeholders that we got to talk to, the people that we met, the things we learned, and the fun we had, because I expected that. But I can't do any of those things because, unfortunately, this trip, and this is the thesis, it was a colossal waste of time. Now, when we found out that we won the award, And this is actually, for those of you who don't know, it's actually the second time that we've won an eBay Canada EOI award. We won an award in 2019, which was one of the other categories. And this year we won the main prize. I was super excited when we found out. I did a full podcast episode about it and talked about why it's important that resellers get formally recognized for the work that we do and the impact that it has on both reducing waste and keeping history alive. And I really do still feel that way. But I'm not so sure that eBay Canada does feel that way. And it honestly makes me so sad. So here's what happened. Here's the timeline. Okay, we were told that we had this trip to Ottawa. We were asked to book our own travel, which was not that big of a deal. You know, it was nice to have some flexibility over the timing of flights and where we stayed and things like that. Although I did think it a little strange because that's not what happened in 2019. But I was like, you know what? This is a new team. You know, they're doing things differently. It's fine. So we booked our own travel and it was going to be reimbursed. And so we planned to arrive the day before, and then we booked a flight that left really late in the day on after 3 days, so that we'd have one free day to just sort of spend some time with friends and stuff. We were expecting to have a day to a day and a half of eBay related stuff to go to, and that was the agenda that we were given just before we left for the trip. So we got to Ottawa and that was fine. The flight was fine. And in the morning we had a meeting at a PR company's office, and we were given the same agenda that we had received the prior week, except that none of the meetings that were on that agenda were actually going to happen anymore. Now, I get it. These were supposed to be meetings with government stakeholders, MPs, and you can't control an MP's schedule. They may or may not be available. And that's just the reality, and that's what happens. So I do understand. But only each winner was supposed to meet with a MP, and only 2 people got those meetings. We did not, and one of the other winners did not. And that would have been fine if there had been something else, like, say, a meeting with the Minister of Small Business, whose name, by the way, didn't even come up at all in the conversation, or meetings with, I don't know, stakeholders from Canada Post, or meetings with people from eBay who were very noticeably absent. The GM of eBay Canada was supposed to be there, but got sick. I understand. They didn't send anybody in his place. I would have expected at least a small team of 3 or 4 people to be present, because this is the Entrepreneur of the Year Awards. This is eBay Canada's sort of pinnacle celebration of its sellers. So I would have expected a few members of the team to have come to Ottawa to be with us for that celebration, not just to say, hey, you're awesome, but also to get some feedback, to talk to sellers, to find out what our challenges and questions are, to get in there and hear our voices. Talking about being eBay sellers and what it means to us and the great things about it and the not so great things about it. I mean, if eBay's going to say that they're there for its sellers, which, by the way, was the messaging that we were asked to talk about at the reception that happened later that night, they should be there for their sellers. It was just so ironic that there was only one person there, and she was new on the job. Very, very nice person. Not her fault that she was new on the job. Somebody's fault that they didn't send a team of people from eBay to be there. Absolutely should have been. Anyway, that was the meeting at the beginning, and then it was like, okay, so you have nothing to do until lunch. Then there's lunch, and there's a photo shoot. And we went to lunch, and the food was terrible, but that is what it is. And the other people who were part of the PR team and everybody else just kind of sat on the other side of the room, and the winners ate lunch together without any discussion with anybody else. So we just talked amongst ourselves. And that felt a bit weird. But we had the photo shoot. Photographers are great. They were fun. And then we had a little break. And then we had the reception that night. And the reception was at this really cool little bar in Ottawa called Hyde. If you're in Ottawa, like definitely go. Like just such a neat little intimate little cocktail bar spot. Very cool. Excellent food. So the reception was there, and there were some different kinds of stakeholders, some policy people, some journalism people, nobody from BDC, which I would have expected, nobody from Canada Post, which would have been nice as well. Only one member of parliament came to the event, and this is where it got really weird. So this member of parliament was asked to speak and to, say something about our achievements. And I think he mentioned like, hey, this is great. But then it was like he just went on this sort of rant, this anti current government rant, and then went on and on about a political agenda, a very partisan, very obviously scripted political agenda that was just tangentially related to small businesses, but really was completely separate from what we were there for. And as winners, we were just kind of on the edge of the room going, ah, like, this is awkward. And now I don't care about the political affiliation of anybody who was at that event. What I do care about is that we were told over and over and over again that we were brought to Ottawa to be celebrated. That's why we were supposed to be there. And that is not what was happening at all. Meanwhile, the PR team cheering here, here in the background while this guy went on and on about axe attacks and whatever. And anybody from any political party who had gone up there and done something that was that partisan would have pissed me off. And this definitely pissed me off. I mean, it was completely inappropriate. And in the end, like, it became really clear that that party wasn't for us. That day wasn't for us. None of those meetings were for us. There was something else going on, and I can speculate on what it was, but I'm here to share the facts. I'm just telling you what happened. We felt very, very strange about it. And then on the Tuesday, where there was supposed to be, we were supposed to kind of keep our time free for like the possibility of meetings with government people, but there were none, and we knew there were going to be none. So we made plans with a friend instead. So we spent that Tuesday kind of wandering around Ottawa. It was lovely and warm. We hung out with a friend, sat on some patios, but just kind of wondering what we were doing there. I mean, that whole day, there was just no value add. There was no value add. There was no stakeholders. There was nobody to talk to. There was nobody to discuss our challenges with. We didn't feel celebrated. We didn't even really feel welcomed. It was like fly across the country to eat some free food and get a few drinks and then go home. We didn't get it. We just did not get it. And that's 4 days, that's 4 days of time where you expect, if you're taking 4 days of time away from your business, especially to go to an event that's supposed to be about entrepreneurship, you expect to extract some value from it, something that you can apply to your business, or meet with somebody who might make a difference to our business or to other resellers' businesses. And there wasn't that. It just wasn't there. I will also say that at the reception, when they came up and said all of our names and said congratulations and these are the winners, and then we were all asked to come up for a photo op, and we all expected to be handed our prizes, and we weren't. There was no prize. This prize, if you know, comes with a not insignificant amount of money. And we also thought like there might be a trophy, a plaque, a certificate, a ribbon, like something, some physical thing that we could hold up and say, look, we earned this. Look how cool this is. But there was nothing. And so we were all kind of left standing on the side going, gosh, did we just all come here for a prize award ceremony and not get our award? Like, what? I mean, a trophy and a plaque is a small thing, but it matters as a way of visualizing and remembering one's success. So if you're on YouTube and you see the thumbnail for this podcast episode, you will see a photograph of our 2019 award, which is simple and understated and lovely. And what our 2024 award, which I had to write in Jiffy marker on the back of a piece of notepad paper because I don't know what else to do. I mean, I had to make it myself. Now, I did speak with two people from eBay Canada about this, who admitted that, what happened in Ottawa was kind of a miss, although neither of them were there. And they said that they would work on getting us a plaque of some kind, but that was like, we're going on almost 2 weeks now, and I haven't heard a follow up, and that tells me that it's not going to happen. So this is what I have. So it took, at the end of it all, we were like, hey, kind of awkward here, but like, where's our money? And then that took another 2.5 weeks to get our money. And I had to pressure them to get money in our hands. Like, it was like, oh, like, we're working on it. We're working on it. And I got this feeling that there just was no sense of urgency around it. Like, they didn't see why it was important to actually provide the prize to the prize winners. And it was just so weird to me. Like, I don't, yeah, I don't know what to say. I mean, I even had to like, every time I was like, okay, the checks will be written on this day and then you'll get a notification, and I didn't get a notification, and I had to follow up, and oh, the checks will be pressed on Tuesday and then they'll be sent out on Thursday and you'll get a tracking number, and I didn't get a tracking number, and I had to follow up with that. And it's just like over and over again. Like, why am I having to work so hard for this? I mean, I don't know. Maybe I sound ungrateful. You can criticize me if you want, and that's absolutely fair. But from my point of view, the business award should be something where we leave that place leaning into eBay. We leave that place going, man, that was amazing. Like, we met these people. eBay really demonstrated that they cared about us. They were there for us. They elevated us. We didn't feel any of those things. We just could not wait to get home. We could not wait to get home. And compared to our experience in 2019, where we were, actually, it wasn't 2019, it was early in 2020. I can't remember why there was a delay in the trip. I forget. But anyway, we went in early 2020. It was actually right before the COVID lockdown. And that time, they also had a party. There were lots of members of parliament there. They had stakeholders from Business Development Bank of Canada. They had all kinds of policymakers. There were, I can't remember, 3 or 4, maybe even more people from eBay Canada there. We met all kinds of people. We toured Parliament. We met the Minister of Small Business. We got our awards at the award ceremony. We felt like we mattered. It was awesome. I mean, we walked away from that going like, that was such a cool experience. And this could not have been more opposite. Now, is it fair to compare in 2024 to 2019? Like, yes and no. Like, I get it. We're in kind of a unique position of having won the award twice. And yes, I am very grateful that happened. Okay. I don't want to, like, let's not forget about that. Like, I'm still proud. But is it fair to compare? I don't know. Yes and no. I just think that the contrast signals something about the culture at eBay. If it's eBay Canada, I don't know. If it's the global platform, I'm not sure. I don't know where it's coming from. I don't know who to blame for this. I'm not going to point fingers at any specific person within eBay, but a company culture that talks a big game about supporting small business owners and being there for its sellers, just failing to deliver on that message in such a grandiose way, it sends a message. And I'm not going to forget. Like, I'm just not going to forget. It was so disappointing. Now, of course, I'm not going to caution anybody against applying for this award in the future. I won't. Or any other business award in the future. You still deserve to win, and you'll still get paid eventually. But the impact that I thought it would have just wasn't there. And it could have really championed resellers the way I hoped it would. I think the way most people would expect it to. And the way that I talked about it with such hope in episode 44. But that just didn't happen. Now, if you want to listen to episode 44, and you should, like, I was definitely in a better headspace in that episode. I've linked it in the show notes. Listen to it. I mean, resellers deserve to be championed for the work we do, and that episode is all about that. So that's I think that's all of it. I've told this story so many times to friends and people close to me that it's starting to feel repetitive now. But I don't think I missed anything big. I think you get the gist of it. So what now? I mean, we're doing one thing for sure, which is just so ironic, which is that we're going to be mirroring our store on Shopify. So, starting with comic books only, we're going to have a soft launch of our new Shopify store just ahead of Black Friday. So, you're going to get to see it really soon. And this is going to be one where all the prices are in Canadian dollars. We're going to start Canada only and just comic books. We know that we have a decent base of Canadian buyers on our MailChimp mailing list who might buy from us more frequently if they could buy in Canadian dollars. And that's fair. To be honest, this is something that we've talked about before. It comes up from time to time in sort of our biz dev conversations. Um, it's a good idea to mirror the store on Shopify, and that's bringing all the eBay listings over to Shopify so that they're available there as well. So it's essentially like cross listing the whole store. Um, Shopify will give us more control over our data, our customer information. We'll have access to more robust marketing, better analytics, and of course, much lower fees. So there's big advantages to having a shop there, but it's also a huge challenge. I mean, honestly, I've spent an inordinate amount of time just trying to get this Shopify site functional, and I do have it functional, but it still has all kinds of problems that I got to fix over the next couple of weeks. It's not easy to do. Um, and so it's taking a lot of time. So it's a challenge for that reason, just to get it set up, to get it working properly, to figure out the shipping policies. It's a big learning curve. And also because I don't have a buyer base of 140 million people like eBay does that I can connect with. So it's going to take a lot of work to build that audience for sure. Yes, we have an email list with 3,000 or 4,000 people on it. It's not a particularly active list. So I'm going to have to do a re-engagement campaign, and I'm going to have to do all of this stuff, and I'm going to have to do audience building, and there'll be all of that. That's going to take a lot of work. So I'm trying to set a realistic goal for it, which is to shift 25% of our revenue from eBay over to Shopify within the next 12 to 18 months. So it's kind of a medium term goal. If I can do that, I will feel like this work was worth it, that it was a success, and then we'll decide what we're going to do from there. I don't think it's practical to walk away from eBay, and especially it's not practical to do it just because I'm mad at them. That doesn't make any sense. Strategically, like eBay is still going to be the best platform for our business, I think, for a long time to come. But this experience has definitely like move the conversations that we're having about what to do with our business in some different directions. So we're considering a bunch of different things that we just kind of throw out as ideas, but now we're considering more seriously. One is building a cabin. Um, we actually have a piece of land in the interior of BC that we've owned for a really long time. And we've talked a bunch about building a cabin up there. We have the funds to do it. So, and, maybe we just need kind of like a big long break from our business. So we're thinking about doing that next year. We're also thinking about taking a few months off, at least a couple weeks up to a few months off, and maybe figuring out logistically how we could keep the business going while we were away. We're also looking at moving into kind of an auction style business model so that we can sell our items faster, and a few other ideas. It's not like this one experience has caused us to consider making all of these changes. Like, obviously, we've been brainstorming before, and it's healthy to do things like that if you want to keep your business and your life fresh. Like, why not talk about all these crazy ideas? But now the crazy ideas kind of feel like some of them might be a little bit more realistic, and maybe we're more motivated to do them. And this experience with the EOI awards has kind of accelerated some of those plans. And so after the holidays, we're going to make a decision about what 2025 is going to look like. But I guarantee it will not be the status quo. It just won't. I can't. Like, I'm scarred, you guys. I'm scarred. It sucks. It really sucks. It really sucks. And I think there's ways that they could have made it right after the fact, but they didn't. They just didn't. They didn't rise up. They didn't come back and say, "We really screwed up. We're going to get you paid right away. We're going to have this award couriered to you overnight. We're going to do a I don't know, a feature article on our Facebook page. We're going to." They could have done like so many things to like make up for it and show that they actually did care, and maybe they just made some mistakes. They didn't do any of those things. They didn't do any of those things. So, do you have any questions for me? If you're listening to this on YouTube, which hopefully you are, youtube.com/@StorageWarriorPodcast. If you're not, leave a comment. I would love to know what you're thinking about this. If you have any questions for me, anything I can clarify for you, I'm really curious where this lands for you. And I'm not here to just bash eBay. That's not the point. But I have to be honest about my experience there. Like, people have been asking, so I'm going to tell it. So on the next episode, I'm going to do a Shopify update. Never expected to be doing this, but I'm going to. So I'm going to do an episode about how I'm setting it up, the challenges and frustrations, because there have been many, of getting it right. A little bit more about the why of it and what I'm hoping to do with the shop that I think will help our business in the long run. And then what some of our early goals are for that site. And hopefully by then I'll actually have the soft launch ready to go, so you can check out the page as well if you want. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast anywhere you get your podcast. Just go to businessofreselling.com. And don't forget, we're always buying. Hook us up with a great pick in the Pacific Northwest or British Columbia, and you will receive a gift. Enjoy. Can't wait to read your comments. Talk to you soon.